Oh, hello. Welcome to Thomann TV channel. We're going to interview Dave from the band Dorje. Going to be looking at the effects pedals, his amazing effects setup. At any point, if you don't want to listen to me talk, you can click the links below and then it'll go straight to the playing. I think a lot of you would want that. Yeah, Dave, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came about your setup?
Yeah, so I guess I've been playing bass for a long time, I think since I was about 11 or something, so quite a long time. And yeah, I play bass in Dorje and also in a band called Tosca as well. And yeah, I do a lot of heavy music.
Heavy music.
Heavy and I guess progressive, so lots of kind of time signatures and lots of different bass techniques and lots of different sounds, as my board will kind of demonstrate. A lot of it's less about effects and more about having different depths and tones, if that makes sense.
All right.
So, yeah.
And for heavy music, what type of tone in general is needed or wanted?
I think the key is to get the bass sitting really well with guitars.
Okay.
So you want to kind of really work with your guitarists and whatever, and in particular focus on the mid-range. If you get the bass right in the mids and the guitars right in the mids and the two locked together, then rather than it sounding like the bass is kind of something happening down here and then there's like a load of guitar up here, you end up with this just thick wall of heaviness, which is something that I often get told after a show, just how big everything sounds. And I think it's because, we take the time to get the mids right. So yeah. I would say that. Okay. Mids, all about getting the mids right.
So do you try to stay out of the low end? Is that more like for the drummer, the kick, or...?
Yeah, so we do normally have the kick underneath the bass, but live we kind of do too. So I dial my tone so that there's not too much low end, because every venue and every system in a venue is going to sound different, yeah. And in particularly in the low end. So the more control you can give to the front of house sound guy to kind of choose what's being boosted and how much, the better the sound's going to be.
Okay.
But what we do is I have a radial passive DI box, which is just here.
Okay.
And that's straight after my tuner. Okay. And so my sound engineer he's called James, he's awesome. And he takes the signal from there and he puts that into his, he's got like a digital console thing. And yeah, he basically puts a low pass on it, so takes out all the high end, compresses it loads, and has that just underneath the kick. And he has a sidechain compressor to the kick, so it ducks out as well. So every time the kick comes through, that signal goes down a bit. But it just means that it's very undynamic and it's just like a sort of layer of butter at the bottom end. Yeah. And then he takes the DI from my Microtubes 900 bass amp, and there's a little bit of compression but not a lot. So I've got plenty of dynamics in the mids and at the tops. Yeah. And that's where all the effects and and all the dirty stuff and distortion happens. All right. And then there's just this layer of smooth low end at the bottom. Okay, so I have 3 different drive preamps on my board. Okay. I've got a Vintage Ultra Darkglass, which I use as a slight clean EQ. Okay. And then I switch on the drive channel to get a slightly pushed clean, a little bit more crunchy. And then I've got the Alpha Omega, which we can talk about more because it's incredible. But for the sake of this quick bit, I'll just skim past. So I use that one for my main heavy sound for both my C and C sharp 4-string basses. And then I've got a B7K, which I have different settings set up for a 5-string, just because the frequency response of the instrument is different, so it's easier to kind of switch between the two. So I have the Vintage and the B7K and the Alpha are in their own loop, and the Vintage is in a separate one on this Boss line selector. Yep. So it basically means if I go here, I've switched on the Alpha, and back, I've switched on this, and then if I'm playing 5-string, I would do that, and then I'm going to the back. So
you mentioned the Alpha Omega as being really important.
Yeah, well, obviously it's a very new pedal. That one in particular is special because it's designed with a guy called John Stockman, who's the bass player for a band called Carnival. And they happen to be one of my favourite bands. That's awesome. So it was kind of like my favourite brand of bass gear with like one of my favourite bands and bass players working together. And in particular, that pedal was designed to replicate a sound off a record of theirs called Sound Awake. Okay. And they recorded with a producer called Forrester Saville, and he's just an insane producer, and they got that sound on that record by setting up an amp and putting a load of mics on it, and then rather than moving the amps or tweaking the settings, when they thought, right, it just needs a bit more of this or whatever, they just went and got another bass rig, sat it next to it, put a load more on it, and then just kept doing that. And so in the end, there was about 36 channels of audio going in just for this one section of a song. And that's just the way that he does it. But I think the effect that it had was, rather than it being like big and here and it being kind of flat but wide, it ended up getting lots of depth because you've got lots of bits of phase cancellation happening at different times, and phase reinforcement.
Could we hear what the alpha sounds like and the omega, and then how you blend them together?
Yeah, this is how I'm running it for the Dorje tour, which is the alpha side.
That is definitely a heavy sound.
It's got that grunt. Yeah, it's great. The sort of extreme opposite in terms of the drive sound is the Amiga side. Less throaty maybe, and a bit more kind of fuzzy in a way.
Okay.
So that sounds like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is more buzzy, I can hear that.
Yeah, it's just got a bit more fuzziness. But as I said, you can blend anything in between. So if we put it smack bang in the middle, then we should get a kind of blend of the alpha and the omega side.
And so your particular style of bass playing, we talked a little bit earlier, you play very hard on your bass.
Yes, yeah, I dig in a lot.
Yeah, and you have also very cool like downstrokes and upstrokes, very
I try and use lots of, I think one of my sort of big bass influences is Ryan Martini from Mudvayne.
Okay.
And he has a really interesting way, because in fact, I don't know whether he still does, but he used to super glue together his two fingers, two middle fingers, and he does a lot of like tapping, but not to get the note, but to get the sound of it. Because obviously, your tone changes depending on whether you're playing right at the bridge. It's more parpy and thin, and if you play closer to the neck, it's warmer, kind of thing. And so he was playing around with that kind of thing, and started doing a lot more. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I tried to learn all the different techniques, slap and picking and strumming, and just try and incorporate it. There was a good example is actually a really old song from a previous band, still with Ben and Beer, called Chasing Jade, and the song was called Got Pretty, and I think if I can remember the bass line, would have been. That kind of thing, anyway.
Yeah, nice.
And it had drive on it and all that kind of stuff. But it's just trying to get on all of the slapping and tapping and strumming and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I've never thought about like actually hitting it over the frets and you get a totally different sound.
Yeah, well, you get that kind of.
Yeah, that's nice.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Now, I personally want to know about this hog, or the soy pedal.
Soy pedal.
From upside down here.
Yeah. You can run it with an expression pedal.
Okay.
Which is why I have the expression.
That's what it's connected to. Okay.
And you can change different features of it. So you can use it as a whammy, or as a volume, or as a LFO kind of sweep.
Yeah.
And then basically this little box here is the foot switch for it. So you can save 6 presets.
Yeah.
So basically, it doesn't matter whether my settings get messed up. I know that every gig, I can always hit this button and I'll just get my octave. Okay. And on this setting, my expression is just a volume. Then if I go to here, and this is a horrible noise, that
wasn't so horrible.
No, well, normally I do it with distortion, but I just thought let's not clip the inputs of, so yeah, I mean, I have a few kind of silly noises. This is kind of a fun one as well, because it's one of the sort of... But what I often use this one for is just all the way up, so it's just pitch shifted up, and put a bit of drive on and basically just sound a bit like a guitar.
Nice. Yeah, all right, who needs another guitarist? They got you. It's cool.
Yeah, so there's lots of little, and you can do a freeze function on there as well, and although I don't know whether that one's actually saved. I think it is.
And for that one, the pedal down is to freeze it.
So you plug a note, toe up, it'll sustain it, then you can play over the top and then reset.
That's brilliant.
And so it's in between songs, if someone's broken a string or whatever it is in your live, I just kind of use it as just to create some noise whilst whatever's being fixed, that kind of thing.
Emergency bass solo,
that's it. Without having to be all kind of fancy and that kind of thing. I use I've got a Duality Fuzz, which I often play with the Alpha, just for really heavy stuff. I don't really use it much in Dorje. It's more there for the stuff with Tosca, because we're missing a guitarist. And the Duality is 2 different fuzz circuits, so similar to it's kind of like the fuzz equivalent of the Alpha and Omega. I normally use it with the Alpha, so I'll be playing and then step it in to thicken things up, so that if the guitar shifts from playing chords and doing more melody, I can fill it out a bit further. So that would do kind of... I mean, that's pretty much the board. The only other thing is that I have the Strymon DIG, which I just have as a straight up delay pedal. And I have a Micro Chorus MXR. I don't think I've ever had it in another position than the one it's in, which is just the sort of perfect tempo for... But then you stick the a bit of delay on top of it, and then...
Nice.
And that's kind of just that kind of tone, really. Doing lots of held chords and that kind of thing.
All right, so why did you choose the DIG? Why do you dig the DIG?
Okay, well, I had a TC Electronic Flashback ×4, which was a really cool pedal, but it took up a lot of space and I actually broke it.
Oh no!
But I think I went for the Strymon DIG mainly because Beer started getting into all the Strymon pedals, and I just kind of curiously put my bass through his rig and just had a listen to it and kind of went, you know what, that'd be really cool. It just has a certain, I don't know, it's kind of got this studio quality to it, and it's just really detailed. And yeah, I mean, again, I didn't need lots of different presets and settings, and as you can see, I can kind of type for space on the board, so it was a much smaller footprint than the Flashback, and the quality of it's just awesome. So it was in right where it needed to be. So yeah, that's basically my reason for digging the DIG.
Nice.
And yeah, it sounds great. Really happy with it.
So all the people at home who are thinking about getting pedals, they could buy this entire exact setup and maybe come close to your sound, but you don't even want that. I would think that you would want them to get their own sound out. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I know that you play more kind of jazzy stuff and whatever, and so like maybe stuff like the chorus and delay you'd have some fun with, and like the octave. It's really difficult, but I guess there's an argument to say go and get a multi-effects unit and see what you use a lot of, and then go and find the pedal that does the tone that you use the most, and kind of like get a better version of that sound that you keep using. But also at the same time, you can't go wrong with getting any preamp pedal.
A preamp
because
pedal, okay.
All of these drive pedals, all three of them, are essentially just preamp pedals, and they've all got XLR sockets. So if you're recording at home, you can just plug it straight in, and you can do several different. You've got a parallel out, so you can record the dry signal as well as the wet signal.
Okay.
And you don't have to have them distorted. They've got blend knobs on them and gain knobs, so they can just be powerful EQs. So you can use them as a slap boost, or as a general boost, or as just a general clean tone, or as a drive tone. I guess the vintage Ultra or the B7 Ultra, which isn't on my board, is kind of cool because it lets you do both, because you've got this kind of bypass completely out of the chain. It's just, and then I can put the pedal in but without the gain stage.
Okay.
And then so it's just got a bit more punch, and it's a bit brighter and a bit more tweaked, and then I've got this sort of crunch sound.
One question I have that totally is from my own head. This is Darkglass, that's Darkglass. Why don't you use the drives and circuits in here? Like, what is the thought process between splitting the two?
Yeah, so I mean, there's, I guess, a couple of reasons. One is that I have various different basses that I play, go between 4-string, 5-string and stuff like that, and they all sound different, and their preamps and pickups are all different. So you've got the vintage circuit on there, and you've also got a B3K, which is basically the same as the B7K, the black Darkglass pedal there, but it shares the same EQ as the clean and on the drives, and you have to share the amount of drive as well. So although you've got lots of different textures you can get from the amp head itself, it's not as versatile as having each individual EQ and the blend and level of gain and stuff like that. But at the moment, yeah, I just use it for, it's just general EQ, and it's just sheer power, really.
Yeah. Apparently too much power in some situations.
yeah, and build quality. I mean, they're designed so well, put together. It just looks like kind of looks like a games console.
Yeah, it does. It's like an Xbox or something.
Yeah, they're just cool. They're really good guys, and they make great stuff. So.
All right, cool. Well, thank you for coming in and talking about your pedals. I think I definitely learned a lot about. I'm gonna get a multi-effects rig and get a preamp pedal, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah, and thank you so much for everything.
Thank you guys for having us. It's been awesome.
And feel free to subscribe, click the thing, it's somewhere.
All the links.
It moves sometimes. Yeah.
Cool.
And come back every Tuesday, we'll have a bass video.
Dave.